Today, I want to talk a little bit about the weather as I've seen it the last 2 years thus far. Today's view is the Hammond River in the Darling Islands area towards Hampton. But yeah, this is what I've seen with the weather personally since I've been here. 2023 was my first year here, and that was the most I've seen it rain, I think, in my life. It was all rain all the time, and if it wasn't rain, it was fog, and if it wasn't fog, it was the rain and the fog. And fog, I think there was 1 month where I didn't see the sun in the summer just because the amount of sheer fog. Now, that's specifically more of a St. John thing in the general St. John area. I do live in St. John, so that was my first year. But I didn't have too much of a problem with it personally, and I don't know, maybe I enjoyed that Stephen King movie one too many times. But it was a huge change. It was a nice change, actually. Even just, lots of stuff can happen in Toronto, but the fog, I enjoyed it. It was nice. It was very atmospheric, very full of mystery. And it was, for it even being my first year here, I was like, this is awesome. Now, everyone might not agree with me. You can all let me know what you think about things like fog all day, every day. But for me, I was a fan. Now, going back to the rain, though. So there was a lot of rain that first year. There was a lot of flooding, and like I mentioned, I'm in Darling Islands, which, low-lying areas. If there is any kind of particularly large amount of rain, you can end up with some issues, especially if your house is right on the water. Now, even then, here's the other thing, is like there's large amounts of rain, but there's also the spring runoff to worry about. I'm going to see if I can find the footage, but I have seen where, like, this area in particular did see some heavy flooding. This was a few years back, a long while ago. I don't think it's been that bad ever since, but it is something to always keep in mind, especially if you want to live a little out a ways in general. But yeah, year one was marked with fog and rain, and I was still a fan. Year 2, 2024, this is going to be kind of relative to where you are in general, obviously, but the big thing here for 2024 weather-wise was the winter. There was a large amount of snow, a very, 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 very large amount of snow. And when I was talking to neighbors and stuff going through it, they were like, this is the most snow I've seen in half a decade, or closer to a decade. And that it was a lot. So for that one, I was not prepared. Also, this was my first house I've owned. This was a case of I was not prepared. My driveway does angle towards the house, past it, and then into some drainage. But I actually ended up, due to my own being kind of irresponsible, ended up with being stuck in the house because there was so much snow. But the thing with St. John is it also kind of turns into a lot of sleet because it doesn't completely freeze, so it's not the fluffy stuff. And there was a night where it kind of was like effectively raining salt, and I tried to be smart, and I tried to go shovel late in the hopes that I would get the driveway cleared before the plow came, because I didn't want to get have this freeze at the top of my driveway and then not be able to get out, because again, my driveway goes down, so I have to go up out of my driveway and then just be completely stuck in my house. So try as I may, I ended up stuck in my house for 3 days because I had a giant mound of ice at the end of my driveway, because the plow still came later than I was out there shoveling. So that was, car kind of was landlocked into my house for a few days, because was a large amount of ice and you've been trying to chip through it and it was still snowing and it was still freezing. I worked remote, so you know, good thing to be able to wasn't impacted too much. But things to take note of is if you buy a house and your driveway goes down towards your garage and not up or level, make sure you stay on top of your snow blowing, plowing, or shoveling in the winter, and don't be like me. 2025 has been the driest I've ever seen anything ever, I think. Now, this is a huge contrast to my first year here where it was nothing but rain, but what ended up happening is, as you're all aware, most of the East Coast was under the fire bans and not going outside into wooded areas, and it's led to a lot of people having opinions, which I understand. I understand there was a thing in Nova Scotia where there was massive fines for going out into the woods, and you know, hiking, and you have people being, I didn't know hiking causes forest fires, but sometimes, unfortunately, in order to stop the idiots, you gotta stop everybody. Now, again, New Brunswick did a little differently as far as I'm aware. There was no fines, but there is like a wilderness ban. What I remember the premier saying is, if you go out there and, you know, sprain your ankle and you're stuck, good luck, because we're busy fighting fires and we told you not to go in there. And then people still had problems with that, but if there's one thing I personally like overall is there's no fines attached, but it's just you know, fuck around and find out statement. And it's like, you're making the call. If you make that call and knowing that you're on your own, that's on you. You know, you could scream, I pay my taxes and my taxes pay for services like that. And it's like, yeah, but at some point your personal want to go into the forest, does it outweigh everyone's not wanting their house to burn down because of massive forest fires? I don't know. I don't follow people's logic too much with this one. Who knows? Maybe mine's flawed. Let me know what you think. But yeah, it's been nothing but dry as there's concerns about. I've actually haven't looked into this one. I really should. Like people's wells and stuff, and just the groundwater. If there's been struggles or issues with keeping wells and groundwaters to people's houses still going, take a look into that one. But that's been this year. This year is drought, and last year was snow. Last year was massive amounts of rains. Yeah, so those are the specific instances of the years I've been here. Now, some more of the more general things you will see overall, especially where I live near St. John, or in St. John, is one, fog. I mentioned that already, but fog is a little more constant. It hasn't been as foggy as often this year, but you'll end up with a lot of fog there's usually quite a bit in the summer, like July, August. There's a bunch in the fall too. There is a science or a reasoning for it. Not smart enough to remember. You know, that being, it's like it's still the East Coast. You're still on the ocean. There's going to be fog. And Canada, I think, is home to one of the foggiest places in the world. St. John's, Newfoundland. But yeah, so that's going to be something you're going to see a lot here. The further inland you go, the less of it there is. But even kind of getting out towards Hampton, if it's a foggy morning, the fog will get out to here. The other one, again, for specifically speaking of St. John, is wind. You'll get a lot of wind sometimes. I'm going to speak more specifically about wind in another video, but there is some high winds, especially, you know, any kind of coastal region on the bay where I am. You can get impacted by a lot of heavy winds. The first year we were here, I did lose a bunch of shingles, but that was one time. Hasn't happened since, and it's good. But it can get pretty windy. overall. Yeah, anything in terms of that, you have some great sunny days like today. You'll have periods of rain, you'll have periods of fog, you'll have periods of wind. I have, like, again, for the wind, I've seen it hit just, 80, 90 kilometers per hour just on a Tuesday. But nothing that's staying a little more than I'm used to, a little more than I expected, but it is what it is. You move to a different region of the country, you're going to get some different weather. Now, with all that weather stuff going on, there is things like, climate change, global warming, whatever it's referred to now, where this stuff could keep changing, especially, again, because for things like hurricanes, which we're going to talk about in another video. But, yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about here, is just some points of the weather. If anyone with any anecdotes, please let me know. Or if you question what I'm saying, please let me know what I got wrong. See you later.